instruction asynchronous pa talaga this week? Nalilito ako kasi there is really no official announcement from the Dean's Office if it's asynchronous. Kasi ang sabi ng instruction was, but I was able to lecture pa on Monday only to be informed that it's asynchronous pala. Kasi di ba may isang holiday na hapon. Anyway, gusto niyo attendance na lang.
Yes.
Yan ang gusto ko sa inyo. Madali. Maybe just a few pointers lang. Sayang naman ang ginising natin. Ginising ko. Umaga. Okay. Just some things lang about diabetes. Okay. One thing that I need to emphasize is how a diagnosis of diabetes is made. This is regardless whether it's type 1, type 2, or the other. Kasi madami ng classification ng diabetes, diba? It's not just type 1, type 2. You have GDM, you have maturity onset diabetes of the young. So have to take note that the normal blood sugar level is around 70 to 120 milligrams per deciliter. Sayang naman yung ginising nyo. So just some pointers lang. And then, the fasting plasma glucose should, diagnosis is made when your fasting blood sugar level is higher than 126. This is around 7 sa SI units. Random plasma glucose of more than 200 milligrams. And a 2-hour plasma glucose on a 75-gram loading dose of glucose using the OGTT or the oral glucose tolerance test, and an hemoglobin A1C of more than 6.5%. There are sa hindi pa kasi masyadong validated, there is a new cutoff for the A1C. It's around 7. Ito naman yung tinatawag natin pre-diabetes. So you will not know it. You are probably falling under this category already. So might as well address this risk factor before it's too late. So 100 to 120, 2-hour plasma glucose between 140 to 199. This is an informal lecture. You can interactive if you want to share something. So A1C is between 5.7 to 6.4%. Probably, hindi naman siguro kayo nandito ulit next sem, mag-iiba na yung guidelines. A new guideline is already coming up. The Philippine College of Endocrinology, Diabetes and Metabolism is coming up with the new guidelines. Kalalabas lang 2 years ago, yung lipid profile, di ba, non-fasting na. Imagine you have to fast for 9 to 12 hours if you are for lipid profile. May non-fasting na. So ito lang yun. This was the usual classification, yung type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Central figure in the pathophysiology of type 1 diabetes is early destruction of the beta cells. We know that the beta cells are the ones responsible for producing insulin. Ang type 2, it's more of insulin resistance and beta cell dysfunction. Or could also be secondary to genetic defects. Ito yung ibang classification. It may be to genetic, exocrine, from endocrinopathy, in particular Cushing syndrome, hyperthyroidism, infection. It could be drug-induced. Again, genetic syndrome associated with diabetes like Downs, Klinefelter's, Turner's, and gestational diabetes. In the pathophysiology or glucose homeostasis, insulin acts on 3 organs. Kanina numberan ko 1, 2, and 3 yan. The skeletal muscle at liquid. This is just what happens to maintain, how do we maintain glucose homeostasis? In cases when high blood sugar, in cases where high blood sugar is high or hyperglycemia, the pancreas would be stimulated to release insulin, which is baliktad naman if blood sugar is low, it would trigger the release of glucagon from the alpha cells. Okay? Saan si insulin gumagana? This is where we regulate insulin release. It has something to do with the blood sugar. And there are 3 tissues wherein insulin acts its effect. Adipose tissue, ito yung action niya. Striated or skeletal muscle, as well as the liver. Please take note of the mechanism that happens in all of these 3 tissues. It's always my favorite question during the examination. You have to remember, ang action ng glucagon is always opposite ng insulin. So, anong action ng glucagon? To increase blood sugar level, Number one is it increases glycogenolysis, breakdown of glycogen into glucose. It also decreases glycogenesis kasi kailangan ma-maintain yung glucose, and also it stimulates gluconeogenesis, formation of glucose from non-carbohydrate source. That's the opposite of the effect naman of insulin. Insulin inhibits glycogenolysis. It also stimulates glycogenesis and inhibits gluconeogenesis. So ano nagiging action ni insulin? In the absence of insulin, all of the glucose will just stay in the blood because the insulin would recognize a particular receptor in the cell surface, in particular yung tatlong organ na binanggit ko, skeletal, muscle, liver, and adipose tissue. It would trigger a train of events para din to kinase, and then meron kang tinatawag na CBL molecule. It could either be through this pathway, phosphatidylcholine 3K and MEK, or dito sa CBL. In the absence of insulin, this will not happen. What will happen if the insulin is recognized by the receptor of the particular cell? It would trigger the GLUT4 vesicle to come into the surface of the cell. The GLUT4 vesicle will ferry or will conduct the glucose into the tissue. In the absence of insulin, gamitan natin ng pointer. Pag wala yung insulin, this event will not happen and GLUT4 vesicle will not be able to go into the surface. Kaya nga type 1 walang insulin because of early beta cell destruction. Ang problem naman natin pagka type 2 is there is resistance. The insulin receptor will not recognize or will not as a result of a resistance kahit may insulin ka. Di ba sa type 2 diabetes naman, insulin levels are normal up to a certain extent. Because type 2 people would also have insulin deficiency at the latter part of the disease. I will show you that. So malinaw, in the absence of insulin or resistance to insulin, the GLUT4 vesicle will not be able to come up into the surface because this would be the vehicle for transport of glucose into the cells. So, okay. This is what happens in type 2. A normal, insulin secretion by beta cells would still be effective, and then the beta cell would compensate kasi nag-over-secrete siya ng insulin to combat hyperglycemia. It will come to a point that the beta cell will become exhausted. When the beta cell becomes exhausted, this is the time that diabetes mellitus would set in, and eventually nagkakaroon siya ng amyloid deposits. And if this happens, this is the time that the DM2 people would be needing insulin. Okay? Why is it that gestation or pregnancy is diabetogenic? Two things. Number one is there are two people consuming glucose, the mother and the fetus. And another possible reason is that hormones such as estrogen, cortisol, and HPL would induce or would push the pancreas to produce more insulin, leading in a hyperinsulinemic state. So complications, these are some of the complications, pwedeng stillborn, congenital malformation, and what we call fetal macrosomia, gestational DM, where you can see bata na 38 weeks old pero ang laki-laki. So clinical features, these are just how to differentiate type 1 from type 2. Usually type 1 normal weight. Type 2 usually obese because it's the free fatty acid. Balikan natin itong pathophysiology, why diabetes is said to be one of the risk factor for the development of DM2. It's secondary to these three things: adipokines, a cytokine that is only found in the adipose tissue, the generation of free fatty acid, and inflammatory reaction that takes place in the pancreas would all lead to insulin resistance. So, pinakita ko na kanina where insulin resistance would take place. Para pagdating nyo ng third year in the endocrinology class, you would be able to understand bakit nagkakaroon ng hyperglycemia ang mga diabetics. So, classic triad of DM, polyuria, polydipsia, and polyphagia. Why is that? The cells are constantly hunger kasi hindi naman sila pumapasok sa cells eh. So this would trigger the hunger mechanism, so you would be eating more. And then, another problem of hyperglycemia is the filtrate of the kidney becomes very, very hyperosmolar. So it attracts a lot of water, so you would end up with polyuria. And to compensate for your frequent urination, you keep on drinking. Okay? You have diabetic ketoacidosis as one of the acute complications of DM1. Then you have HSS as an acute metabolic complication of DM2. The presentation is almost the same. So this is to differentiate DKA versus HHS. Then chronic complication, mostly this is seen in the blood vessels. Remember 3 organs that would be targeted in chronic diabetes. The eyes, the kidney, and the peripheral nervous system. You have retinopathy, neuropathy, and nephropathy. This one causes yung advanced glycosylation products would accelerate atherosclerosis. That is why micro and macrovascular complications in diabetes are also common. Amputation, MI, CAD, oxidative stress and disturbance in the polyol pathway, especially if there is accumulation of sorbitol in the lens of the eye, would lead to cataracts in diabetics. So ito yung chronic complications of DM. These are some of the features of the chronic complications in DM. DM1, there is really a reduction in the number of islet cells, and there is increasing evidence that there is some kind of an inflammation that takes place in the islets in patients with DM1, leading to its premature destruction. There are some theories regarding the insulitis or the infection or the inflammation in the islets. One of the implicated viruses is previous infection with mumps, because we know that in mumps, some of the complications would be orchitis or inflammation of the ovaries, as well as inflammation of the pancreas. These are features of DM2. A subtle reduction in the mass of the islet cell, deposition of amyloid. When we see amyloid deposits in the islets, this is already at the end of a DM2, yung tinatawag nating beta cell exhaustion. And there could be a compensatory increase in the number of islet cells only in DM2. So ito yung itsura no, leukocytic infiltrates in the islets. And this is amyloid deposits in the islets. Dun sa inset, you can see the apple green birefringence on polarizing microscope. Yung deposits ng amyloid. This is stained by Congo red. If you don't stain it with Congo red, it will not have that apple green birefringence on polarizing microscope. So this is another microvascular complication, hyaline arteriolosclerosis of the smaller vessels. It starts with thickening of the basement membrane, yung microvascular complication. And then, nephropathy could either be glomerular, renal vascular, or a pyelonephritis for that case. So it starts muna with basement membrane thickening of the glomerular basement membrane. Could be diffuse mesangial sclerosis, or one thing that you've seen in the lab is your Kimball-Still-Wilson lesion. So this is thickening of the basement membrane. This is your nodular glomerulosclerosis, or your AW lesion. So this is how it looks like, rostering the kidneys of a patient with diabetes, diabetic nephropathy, cataracts, glaucoma, and DM retinopathy. It's a proliferative type of retinopathy. And then this is what happens to the end foot. As you can see, there is a progression until such time that the gangrene would set in. There are two factors that would lead to diabetic foot. Neuropathy or nerve damage, wherein people with diabetes would have diminished sensation in the lower extremities, plus ischemia as a result of the microvascular damage. Plus infection, then you end up with a diabetic would end up with gangrene, and the complication or probably gangrene of the foot would lead to amputation. Okay. Adrenal glands, ang ano lang naman dyan, Cushing syndrome, adenoma, and carcinoma, with some very subtle differences. And then the other disease that you will have to emphasize or study, the virilizing syndrome, and adrenogenital syndromes, and important yung CAH because this is part of the diseases screened in newborns, yung congenital adrenal hyperplasia. Because this could cause ang tawag dito, hermaphroditism. And then, ano pa? Pheochromocytoma. And ito, multiple endocrine neoplasia. Men 1, tatlong P. Pituitary adenoma, parathyroid hyperplasia, and pancreatic tumors. Men 2A, parathyroid hyperplasia, dalawang P, isang N. Men 2B would have tatlo na letter M, isang P. Okay. That ends the first part. Binigyan pa ako ng extra topic to lecture eh. Okay. So, this is just going to be short. 3 topics: pancreatitis, tumors, the benign tumors, especially the cystic neoplasia, and pancreatic carcinoma. So color-coded so that you will be oriented as to the different parts. It's important that we know the different parts of the pancreas kasi certain diseases would be located in each of these portions. So yung pink or fuchsia, whatever, we would call it is the uncinate process. Then the blue one is the head of the pancreas, green is the neck, the orange one is the body, and the yellow is the tail. We are going to talk about this time the exocrine portion, no longer the islets. So pag sinabi natin exocrine portion, we're dealing with the pancreatic acini. It produces enzymes, also it produces bicarbonate to counteract the effect of acids in the stomach. Not too much about the anatomy anyway. You have been oriented too much on this. Important lang to note is the bile ducts joins with the pancreatic duct and opens into the duodenum. So our concern this time would be the acini. So pancreatitis may be acute or chronic. There are 3 mechanisms that would protect the pancreas from autodigestion. Number 1, most of the digestive enzymes are secreted in the inactive or proenzyme form. It will only happen, the activation will only happen once it encounters an enzyme, yung duodenal enteropeptidase, which of course activates trypsin and activates the other proteolytic enzyme, chymotrypsin. The secretion of trypsin inhibitors by acinar or ductal cells would also limit the activity of proteolytic enzymes. So what happens with acute pancreatitis? This is reversible. Most of the time, this is associated with inflammation and has a lot of risk factors. Maybe toxic exposure to a particular drug, chronic pancreatic duct obstruction, maybe secondary to stones, maybe genetic, maybe vascular injury or infection. One of them is yung mumps. All of this would cause direct parenchymal injury plus inflammation. So the incidence in Western countries is around 10 to 20 cases per 100,000. Marami yan. And male to female ratio is around 1:3. Mas marami sa babae if they have a biliary tract disease. It reverses to a male predominance if you have a male that is alcoholic or with chronic alcohol intake. So nawawala ngayon yung tatlong protection ng pancreas from autodigestion when acute pancreatitis would set in. Inappropriate or intrapancreatic activation of trypsin. Then, it releases both a phospholipase, which could cause fat cell degradation, and a proelastase, which would damage the elastic fibers of the blood vessel. Kaya laging kasama ng fat cell necrosis would be hemorrhage. Tinatawag natin acute hemorrhagic pancreatitis. And then, conversion of prekallikrein to kallikrein by trypsin, which activates the kinin system, the clotting and the complement system, leading to inflammation and small vessel thrombus. All of this would trigger acinar cell damage. So, this is the pathophysiology. You have duct obstruction. If you have acinar cell injury, secondary to these risk factors, and defective intracellular transport. All of them would lead to acinar cell injury plus activation of enzymes. That is why it causes a lot of changes, inflammation, podocytes, and hemorrhage, as well as fat necrosis. So this is to differentiate lang mild acute pancreatitis from severe acute pancreatitis. Hemorrhage is often seen in severe acute pancreatitis. The yellow ones are the areas where you have the fat necrosis. So these are what we see microscopically. So in acute interstitial pancreatitis, you can have mild inflammation, aside from inflammation, interstitial edema, and focal areas of fat necrosis, both in the pancreas and the peripancreatic fat or the omentum. In acute necrotizing pancreatitis, there is a widespread damage of the acinar and ductal tissue, including it will not spare the islets of Langerhans. That is why in acute necrotizing pancreatitis, some patients may also present with transient hyperglycemia. The injury to the vascular wall will lead to hemorrhage, and at the peritoneum, there will be peritonitis. Blood-tinged fluid containing fat globules because there is hemorrhage. In hemorrhagic pancreatitis, there could be extensive parenchymal necrosis with wide areas of hemorrhage. So, laboratory findings, abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, clinical findings, then laboratory elevated serum amylase and lipase. And in severe cases, as I have mentioned, it might involve the islets of Langerhans, so there could be transient hyperglycemia and glucosuria. Management, restriction of oral intake, and supportive therapy. Usually give fluids and pain relievers. What are the complications? It may lead to an abscess in the pancreas or a pancreatic pseudocyst. Some people, especially with the more severe pancreatitis, they may end up with ARDS as well as renal failure. Okay. Now we have chronic pancreatitis. Most common is secondary to chronic alcohol intake. It may also be associated with long-standing complication or long-standing obstruction of the pancreatic duct, maybe by a stone or a cancer, It may be an autoimmune injury to the gland or what we call hereditary pancreatitis. So these are just to differentiate or probably make a distinction between the chemical mediators that we see in acute pancreatitis in contrast to chronic pancreatitis. So mostly, these are the inflammatory mediators that we see in acute inflammation. Whereas here you have, most of them are already mediators that would stimulate fibrosis, like TGF-beta, platelet-derived growth factor, and they can cause fibrosis of the acinar, of the acinar portion of the pancreas. So these are the cystic neoplasms. What's important about it is just siguro yung which of these tumors would have increased risk of developing into carcinoma. Like mucinocystic neoplasms are precancerous lesion. Halos pareho sila ng itsura doon sa mucinous adenomas in the pancreas. I mean in the ovary. This is what you would just see. You have a mucin-secreting lining epithelium. Another is IPMN. This is also a precancerous lesion. And then we have your solid pseudopapillary tumor. It's precancerous but it has low malignant potential. I'm quite familiar with it because I had 2 cases when I was a resident. And the last would be pancreatic carcinoma. Just to discuss about it, it's the 4th leading cause of cancer death in the United States. It has a very high mortality rate. And one of the, ito yung mga precursor, yung mga cystic lesions in the pancreas. This is commonly diagnosed in this age group. Wala pa kayo dyan, di ba? Malayo pa kayo dyan. O 1 year na lang. Dual citizen na. So we'll have 20% discount. I'm looking forward to it. 20% discount. A parking lot that is allotted near the entrance. Libreng sini sa SN North tuwing Lunes ng hapon. This is common in individuals of Ashkenazi Jewish descent. Naalala mo tuloy ngayon because what really causes the war in the Middle East is actually, it's essentially, di ba? Gera lang naman yun ng Israel. Nakisawsaw lang si Trump kasi BFF niya si Netanyahu. Pati tayo, nadadamay. Cigarette smoking doubles the risk of pancreatic cancer. Ang siguro pinakasikat na longest survivor of pancreatic carcinoma was Steve Jobs. Parang 10 to 11 years bago siya namatay, di ba? If you are using any Apple products, you have to remember him. So most often, this would originate in the head. Then the body 15%, the tail 5%, and then the entire gland, in some cases, would be involved in 20% of cases. So you have a gray-white stellate, poorly defined mass. It's highly invasive. It elicits an intense desmoplastic reaction. That is why it is very matigas yan. So, microscopically, you have poorly formed glands. Tapos in between, you can see a very fibrotic stroma. Most of the time, the glands are poorly differentiated. It's rare that we see well-differentiated glands resembling pancreatic acinis. This is a poorly differentiated ductal adenocarcinoma. Usually, tumors located at the head would manifest early because it would obstruct Kasi nandun yung ano, di ba, common bile duct. The body and the tail would present or would be asymptomatic. Most of the time, nadadiagnose sila when it has already spread widely. Perineural and vascular invasion is common. This is a section of a pancreatic carcinoma invading the nerve tissue. Another histology showing the tumor invading the peripancreatic fat. So it could involve a lot of areas. Could spread peripancreatic, common bile duct, duodenum, adrenals, stomach. Lymph nodes is also, nodal metastasis is also common. Sites of distant mets may be seen in the liver, in the lungs. If you can look at it, the presentation is quite not specific. And then there is this particular feature that would make you suspect pancreatic carcinoma, migratory thrombophlebitis, as a result of activation of platelet activating factors and procoagulant substances from the cancer or the necrotic products. So testing, CEA, CA19-9, ultrasound, CT scan, and 80% of pancreatic carcinoma at the time of diagnosis are unresectable. Most patients die within the period of 1 to 2 years. Si Steve Jobs na pinakamatagal na nag-survive ng pancreatic CA. Siguro dahil may pera siya. And that's it. Unless you have questions. And ano pa ba? Is this the yes?
Doctor, nakatang po mga attendance for section D, may mask po sa isa.
Sige. Hindi ko na lang ito sasabihin. Kasi I know it's a hindi, nalilito talaga ako kasi there were days that were declared as synchronous. May day naman na kailangan mag-lecture. Anyway, 2 more weeks and it's the finals. And you will be indoors to the 3rd year faculty. You will be staying most of the time sa tower kasi bihira ang lecture ng 3rd year sa kabila, di ba? You will be permanent resident of the Nicanor Reyes Tower. Kailan bang start, I think classes will start July. Kaya namin inaan kasi until it shifts back to June.